Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in God's holy place? She who has clean hands and a pure heart. She shall receive blessings from the Lord and justice from God her helper, and whose helper she most surely was. It is only the house of the Spirit, which we will lay now within this earth. The Spirit itself cannot die, but returns to God who gave it, and lives on so clearly in the hearts, the minds, the memories, the very souls of all who loved her. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehishem, Adonai Mevrach. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away now. Blessed be the name of the Lord. The central mitzvah of a sad moment such as this, a funeral, in Hebrew is called hesped or eulogy. And to help Ruth along her way, we have a hesped, a very special one, that will be begun by her sons, Jeffrey and Gary, and grandchild Gabe on behalf of all of them.
Wow. I mean, wow. In spite of the rain, we have an awful lot to celebrate today. And man, did Mom love to celebrate. She absolutely loved parties filled with people and never, ever wanted them to end. In fact, right now she's up there, she's looking down and she's going, they better keep this going for a few hours. When it came to celebrations like bar mitzvahs, weddings, birthday parties, she had one metric to judge success. How long did people stay? Everything else pales in comparison to that one indicator. Long party, good. Short party, bad. I wouldn't be surprised when we go through her drawers to find a scorecard in her apartment for all of the family's life events and every one of her birthdays. And I'm sure she's running a scorecard right now. By any measure, her 97th birthday party this past December was a huge hit. Over 50 friends and family celebrated her birthday, and it went on forever. So long, in fact, that some of us what's the word? 80. Yes. Some of us younger folks, we had to get to bed. We couldn't take it anymore. And she just kept on. It went on forever, and Bubby loved that. And she delighted in celebrating that night and partying with her wonderful Fox Run friends, her Fox Run community, including Frida, Claire, Joyce, Sharon, Pat, Bertle, and Jane. All of us know that Bubby was an extreme extrovert. She was energized by people, and she very much disliked being alone. That was not desirable at all. Being alone just struck her as plain old wrong. Sometimes she would call me in the evening, complain about being bored all day. Oi, she'd say, there's nothing doing here. Nothing. It's so boring. Later, I would find out that Judy had called, that Jeff had called, that Gabe had been there, that Dave had been there, that Midge had been there, and her friend Frida had visited, that the cantor from Jewish Hospice had come and sang to her that she had gone to hear a string quartet. She could never get enough of the people and things that brought her joy. She could be relentless in that pursuit of joy. She persisted until she got what she wanted. And in the last year or so, what she most wanted was a great grandchildren to join her 8 grandsons. It was a full pressure campaign aimed at all the grandsons, regardless of their marital status. Do you hear that, those of you that are on Zoom? Who was going to bring her her first grandchild, her first great-grandchild? Just 10 weeks ago, she got what she wished for, Rowan Appel. Raffi and Emmy sent pictures and videos almost daily and FaceTimed and called often. It was the most treasured bright spot of her day. Late afternoon, she would often call me. She would sometimes call me and chastise me if no pictures had come that day. I'm very upset, she'd joke. How come I didn't get any pictures today? Where are the pictures? And I would hustle around and see what I could find. And as her memory was going, we sometimes recycle some of the early pictures, and she wouldn't know the difference. She was a force of nature. She was a larger-than-life character. Her exuberant spirit and energy will carry Rowan and all of us forward. L'adore Vador.
Okay. Oh, no AirPods? Okay. Hello, everyone. Shout out to everyone in California and Colorado and Washington, D.C. who could not be here. It stinks. I'm sorry that that happened. And Judy, I'm sorry you're not here, but you're here in spirit, and you had a good relationship, so it's okay. It's okay. I have been blessed to not have to attend too many funerals thus far in my life. And I have to say that thus far, this is the happiest funeral that I have ever been to. My Bubby Ruth lived a long and happy life and was very much ready to go. She didn't tell me this, but I think Bubby Ruth would like me to stand up here and give a long, meandering speech, ideally in poem form, with flowery language about swimming and nature, filled with metaphors and dolphins. A dear friend of hers, Helen Moss, famously gave these long, meandering speeches at every event for 50 plus years that would go on and on. And while everyone would be checking their watch, without fail, afterwards, Bubby Ruth would go, "That was the best thing I've ever heard." She'd be talking about trees, she'd be talking about nature, and Bubby Ruth would love it. So I'm going to do my best to satisfy her wishes. I speak today on behalf of Bubby Ruth's 8 grandsons and their wives, girlfriends, and fiancés. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic or exaggerating when I say that aside from her husband, Zadie Mickey, she loved her grandsons more than anything in this world. When Zadie Mickey retired in 1988, he and Bubby Ruth became full-time grandparents. This made them unbelievably happy. Post-retirement, they were now free to be with their grandkids every day. Based on their frugal lifestyle, they now had enough money and they now had enough time that they could go to any elder hostel they chose. They had enough time they could go to any free concert, any free museum, any free nature preserve that they could find. They had the means to go to any fine restaurant in the city, in the world, that they could have desired to go to. However, going to fancy restaurants made them crazy. So instead, they split $2 worth of food from Wendy's, along with the free coffee they received for being seniors. And this made them happy. They were happy. One thing I like about Bubby Ruth, and I think everyone here and listening will agree, is that as long as I knew her, she basically did whatever she wanted. She basically said whatever she wanted. And most importantly to her, she ate whatever she wanted. She got so much joy from food. Like, it was like the love of her life, aside from her friends and family. She loved food. She got joy from talking about her friends who she outlived, who would never consider eating a morsel of corned beef or, God forbid, a hot dog. She got a lot of joy from food, and amazingly, she continued to be healthy and happy and eat whatever she wanted until the day she died at 97 years old. It was amazing. It's truly, we can't explain it. It's amazing. Bubby Ruth and Zadie Mickey could do whatever they wanted. Basically, they did. But what they did most and what they treasured most was experiences with family. What they treasured most of all was time with their grandkids. This is what made them the most happy. She could literally never get enough time with us. We would see her one day, and then without fail, we would receive a call the next day asking when we were coming to see them. Time with her grandkids made Bubby Ruth very happy. Sharing a meal with us, teaching us how to swim, taking us to a museum or the zoo. She once famously tried to pick my brother Sam up from preschool without notifying the school that they were coming to pick him up. When the teacher asked Sam if this was his grandmother, he looked at her and responded, "I have never seen this person in my life." I don't think that stopped them from taking him home that day, because nothing could keep them away from us. They treasured their time with their grandkids. If not for Bubby Ruth and Zadie Mickey, it's very likely that my cousins and I would never have been to an art museum or really any museum our entire childhood. They took us to the zoo so many times that they became friends with the lead zookeeper for the chimpanzees, which granted us extra access. Bubby Ruth treasured each moment with her grandkids. Visiting Matthew, Jacob, and Elliot in California was a highlight of their lives, especially when their membership to the Detroit Science Center allowed them to enter into the San Jose Museum for free. Bubby Ruth loved visiting up north to see Raffi and Micah and staying at the little house on Crystal Lake and being able to play with Raffi and Micah in the lake. That was truly a highlight of her life. They took videos of us all the time and watched them over and over when they couldn't see us. She spent as much time as she possibly could with her grandchildren, and she would have liked to have spent 10 times as much as she did. She loved us all so much that it was never enough for her. Recently, as discussed, Raffi and Emmy gave Bubby Ruth her first great-grandchild, and this was a major new source of joy. She was so happy to meet Rowan. In later years, Bubby Ruth regularly expressed slight regret that she hadn't spent more time traveling the world and going to fancy restaurants. I would then ask her, did you ever want to go to a fancy restaurant that you didn't end up going to? She would reply, never. I asked her if she and Zadie were happy at Wendy's and enjoying activities near her home like the zoo in Cranbrook. She would reply, always. I asked her, did you ever really want to travel more? She said, not really. Then we would always come to the conclusion that they did it the right way for them. They were extremely happy with their lives. Not a lot of people can say they lived 97 years and have little to no regrets. Growing up poor, she desired a simple life, and that simple life with Zadie Mickey made her very, very happy. Bubby Ruth would tell a story about her honeymoon with Mickey on Mackinac Island. As you know, a highlight of visiting Mackinac Island is riding bikes around the island. The only issue is that Bubby Ruth didn't know how to ride a bicycle. The story goes that they rented bicycles, and for one sunny day, Bubby Ruth magically could ride a bicycle, and together the newlyweds rode around the island. After that day, she claimed she could never ride a bicycle again. I'm not sure that the story is 100% true or not, but I think it's kind of an accurate metaphor for her life. She may have not always known exactly what to do or how to do it. She may not have always had a plan, but when it came down to it, she did what she wanted to do, and it always worked out for her and Mickey, and they always got through each challenge together with a smile on their face. Finally, my Bubby Ruth loved the water and loved to swim. She used to speak of a dream she had. It was her funeral, and as she laid in her coffin, she transformed and emerged as a dolphin so she could swim one last lap. Well, I don't think we can see that transformation, and I'm not sure in what form she is in exactly. I truly believe that Bubby Ruth is in a happy place, back with her beloved Zadie Mickey, and they are happy to be swimming together again. I love my Bubby Ruth, and I will miss her, but I feel lucky to have had her in my life for so many years. Thanks.
Friends, I do not usually repeat stories in my eulogies, as I believe that each soul is unique and deserves its own special life metaphor. You will forgive me in this one instance, because not only did I use this metaphor at Mickey's funeral, but frankly, I tell this story to almost anyone I meet. It is one of my all-time favorites. Now, I did not know Ruth at this point, as they were founding members of a conservative synagogue nearer to their home. But I was called up north to a family compound on a beautiful lake to perform a wedding for what I describe as somewhat of a hippie couple, who asked me if I would read an Apache love poem as part of their Jewish wedding service. Although it was a bit unorthodox, I agreed. They also wanted to be married outdoors, beside the lake, in a spot that was meaningful to them both. As the wedding hour approached, it was threatening rain, and I implored them to take the wedding indoors, to no avail. So the wedding begins, and they are standing with me beneath a beautiful chuppah in their favorite spot, surrounded by family and friends. But then I see that it is starting to drizzle. So I speed things along. I get to the middle of the ceremony, and people are beginning to shield themselves from the rain with their programs. Now I begin cutting out some of the less essential ritual passages. I'm about to have them break the glass and run for shelter when I remember the Apache love poem. Darn. I'm just going to skip it, I thought to myself. People are looking really uncomfortable. But when I glanced down at the seat and then back up at the couple, dry under the protective chuppah, I knew it had to be read. Because the first line of the poem was, "Now you shall feel no rain, for you shall be shelter unto one another." At which point the clouds broke and we all ran into the lodge for the celebration. I retell this story from Gary and Mimi's wedding now for two reasons. First, it was then that I fell in love with Ruth Appel. Despite the rain, the unconventional venue, the bugs and the dust, she was exuberant, charismatic, joyful, and just so much fun. I am not sure that I had met anyone so filled with joie de vivre. And both my wife and I were taken with this incredible woman. But I also wanted to retell this story because at Mickey's funeral, the metaphor that I used was that one of the poles of the chuppah was now missing, and that was true. But when I look back at that Apache love poem and think of the Zoom meeting that we held in preparation for this funeral, of the beautiful faces of her grandchildren and the adorable Rowan, of her children, each of whom I have come to know and respect over the years, I realized that Ruth was the chuppah. And now that she is gone, you might feel unprotected from life's storms. But that would not be true, because in her life, Ruth erected an eternal chuppah of joy and family and adventure and education and fun that none of you will ever lose, because it is just so strong and enduring. Or, as we might say, now you shall feel no rain, for as members of Ruth's loving family, you shall be shelter unto one another. I promise, that is the last time I will tell that story, at least to all of you. But I know that that story is part of me and part of my rabbinate and part of my family lore, just as Ruth is now part of each and every one of you. There was, however, a part of her story that I did not know. And so I asked about her childhood, and I was very surprised by the answer. As it turns out, her childhood was made difficult by the fact that her parents, Yiddish-speaking immigrants from Lithuania, were just so very poor. So poor that Ruth would cry whenever you asked her about it. Although they were grocers, they did not have enough money left over at the end of the week to purchase a chicken for Shabbos, so that an upstairs neighbor would give them the chicken she had already used for making her chicken soup. On the positive side, of her parents' 12 siblings, 11 escaped from Europe, so that Ruth had 90 first cousins and was so very involved in the cousins club. As a young girl, Ruth skipped 2 grades because even then she was bright, graduating the 13th grade at the top of her class with all A's. But alas, she could not attend college due to finances. So she went to secretarial school instead, donating all of her earnings to help support her family. Although it must be said that Ruth never believed in working too hard. What she did believe in was having fun. A lifelong friend used to tell the family that Ruth had been the most beautiful girl in Windsor, like a model, and very smart. Ruth often told the story of when she was a bridesmaid and brought the dress at J.L. Hudson's in Detroit. When she was crossing the border to Canada, she was stopped and they asked her where she bought the dress. Since the tags were removed, She said it was from Canada. They ripped open the seams and saw J.L. Hudson. They took the dress away. Ruth cried every time she told that story. She loved that dress. Now, Ruth met Mickey at a weenie roast, which made her grandchildren laugh whenever she said it. A relative told Ruth about him, that he had just gotten out of the army, and added, "He's very shy. Can you make sure he's comfortable?" Well, she did as they asked, and came home that night, woke her parents, and told them that she had met the man she was going to marry. Of course, it took Mickey 3 weeks to call. I told you he was shy, but all's well that ends well. Back then, I asked her, "What about him attracted you?" "I don't know," she responded. "Actually, now that I think about it, he was very quiet." But then she added with a smile, "But he was also gorgeous." After 2 years of dating, Ruth thought she was finally going to get a ring. But no, he bought her a record player instead. Still, Ruth and Mickey were soulmates and loved each other more than humanly possible. Ruth used to say that she was the luckiest woman in the world, and Mickey would agree. "We never had an argument," Ruth reported, then looked up and added, "But I read somewhere that that was very unhealthy." Mickey was very protective of her, took such good care of her. After he retired, he did the shopping and so much more around the house. He even carried her purse everywhere they went in public. At his funeral meeting, their children said Dad would talk more when Mom was quiet. At which point Ruth chimed in saying, "When was I ever quiet?" Their marriage was nutty, one of them said, in that we never saw them fight. It was crazy how much they liked each other. It was almost dysfunctional how well they got along. My parents had a true love marriage, another wrote, and each of them treasured the ground the other walked on. This lasted 63 years. During their marriage, they never missed an opportunity to attend the symphony, ballets, plays, modern dance, concert, and museums. They ushered at the Detroit Opera Theater in their older years. In their 80s, they started attending free jazz concerts at the DAA, and everyone knew them there and had the front row seat saved for them. They participated in ballroom dancing, and in their 60s, started square dancing as well. They were involved in the ALI, Adult Learning Institute. Mickey was on the curriculum development committee and worked hard to ensure that all of his speakers were great. Same goes for the elder hostels at Camp Tamarack. My father did all the work, their kids told me, but my mother got all the credit. The important thing Ruth once told me when we were discussing this is having fun, because I don't believe in working. Their children, Gary and Mimi, Jeffrey and Michelle, and Judy and Michael, remember so many wonderful adventures with their mother. And that is what life was like with her, a constant adventure. Indeed, every Sunday morning, nature hike, you've heard about this, Kensington, Cranbrook, ice skating, bird watching, just so many more, swimming. Tuesday nights at Ponderosa, where Mickey and Ruth could split a fish dinner for under $10. Warm summer days swimming at Kent Lake and Dodge Park, family vacations to the Upper Peninsula, to Point Pelee, and just so many, many more. Camping trips that they would organize for their friends. And on the way home, they would stop at Frankenmuth for dinner. Dad always drove home, the kids told me, while we slept with our stomachs full. When we were growing up, they would organize picnics, and there were picnic baskets full of chicken and brisket, and the rock quarries that you've heard about, Camp Michigania. Growing up, her kids had what they called a nature-oriented life. Campfires in the winter, barbecuing. I think you heard the story. Once the Rangers came along and sounded a blizzard warning, and she said, "It's okay, we'll go after the hot chocolate." One more lap at the JCC pool was a big part of their lives. She swam until a couple of years ago, every day, and lake swimming was one of her greatest joys. They would go up to Interlaken for the day to listen to rehearsals. Again, they were free. Dress rehearsals at the Michigan Opera Theater. She was frugal and didn't believe in paying for anything that could be free or gotten at a discount. In the summers, they would go to the Huntington Woods free concerts. We had wonderful times, they told me, at Crystal Lake and Crystal Mountain after Gary and Mimi got married. For those of you that don't understand, they own the mountain. My guess is that it was free as well. So she was careful with money, but generous at the same time. She paid for all of our colleges and graduate schools, for instance, her children told me. She may have been cheap, but she was generous in what counted and was very, very proud that all of her children have graduate degrees. Ruth had no filter and said what she felt. She did not take no for an answer. She would convince you that she was right. Whatever came into her head came out of her mouth. And that was not old age talking. It was the same 50 years ago, especially when it came to sex. If she came over to babysit her grandchildren, she'd whisper to the parents, "Go upstairs and have a quickie first." And when they were younger, they remember that every Wednesday and Sunday morning, their parents would push a chair up against the bedroom door, and we were on our own for breakfast. Ruth saw the good in all people. She had a great sense of humor, and loved when people laughed with her. Ruth loved her grandchildren, Andrew and Lauren, Gabriel, Samuel, Raffi and Emily, Micah, Matthew and fiancee Emma, and Jacob more than anyone on earth. Every one of them was her favorite. You see, as I mentioned, she hated hard work, thought it was stupid, but had an unending capacity for fun, and that made her the perfect fun bubby. She had so much energy for them. She beamed when she talked about them. If it was nice weather, you had to be outside, and you knew that there was going to be an adventure. Movies were only for when it rained. Bubby and Zadie's home was a second home to us, they told me, and each had our own food, matzo balls and chocolate pudding, another spinach quiche, kasha and varnishkin. She wasn't a cook per se, but she did have a way of making each of them their favorites and always had hard candies available for them. She was also not much for cleaning. The strict rule in her house was no drying the dishes. Come talk to me instead, she would insist. When her children would chide her about hygiene, she would respond, "I've lived like this all my life and I've never gotten sick." And you know, she had a point. We loved all the fast food we got to eat with her, taking us to Wendy's and McDonald's play places, although she would frequently forget one of us there because she lived so in the moment and yet at the same time was so very with it. My friends always made fun of me, one grandson told me, because I hung out with my grandmother so much. She was my biggest champion. She supported me in many ways as there could possibly be, and was very interested in being part of our lives. Our relationship with her was real and not forced. My life was greatly enriched by her active lifestyle. She gave us such good experiences and said such crazy stuff. People would come up to us at, say, a family wedding and gush, "Oh my God, I love Bubby." They were also grateful that Bubby had an amazing second life. She was so happy at Fox Run. For her, it was like going away to summer camp. In her 8.5 years at Fox Run, she made many new friends and was beloved by so many people there. She was the Pied Piper wherever she went, and everybody would do whatever she asked. She changed the culture at Fox Run by inviting everyone to her apartment every day. Even during the COVID-19 crisis, she would sneak friends at night after the caregiver had gone to bed. Until not long ago, she did water aerobics daily and loved her indoor pool. And when we came, her grandchildren told me, she would walk us around halls to show us off to her friends. She hated having extra meals on her meal plan at the end of the month. So she would invite us and all of our friends to dine with her. And if there were no meals left at the end of the month, she had a new scheme to get us in to eat for free. She was a character, and all our friends knew and loved her. Bubby loved food, and nobody enjoyed Fox Run Sunday brunches as much as she did. She was a rock star. Happily, for me, an important part of her second life was coming to Temple Israel every single Friday night with her girlfriends, sitting in the front row, so that Wendy and I got to reconnect with her in such a beautiful way. There was never a week where I did not have a chance to interact with her, give her a hug and a kiss, which, believe me, I wish I could do right now. Her family asked me to thank her amazing caregivers, Stella and her daughter Jessica. They were wonderful, remarkable. Stella loved my mom, and the feeling was mutual. Stella, without fail, interacted with her with grace and charity, even when my mom was most difficult. And a special shout out to her nephew, Dr. Danny, who for years, right up to the last week, visited her at Fox Run every single week without fail. And really to her entire family, who took such loving care of her in these latter years. As I said, Ruth had no filter. And a symptom of that is that even before they were married to her grandsons, she would tell their girlfriends that all she wanted from them was a great grandchild. Until finally Rowan came along, and she had her every wish fulfilled by this beautiful baby with whom she FaceTimed just recently and absolutely loved it. Ruth was 97 years old, but you would never know it. She seemed eternally young and vibrant. But the day before she died, she did say to a family member, "I think I'm ready to go." And she must have been ready, because after she died, her children looked at her call log on her phone, and it turns out that she had spoken with so many members of family and friends. There were something like 14 or 15 calls on the log that day. So basically, she touched base with many of the people she loved and then went to sleep and didn't wake up. And so, my friends, although your chupat shalom, your shelter of peace, may now be resting in peace, I hope you feel her love protecting you always. Because indeed, it is a chuppah built of the lessons she taught and the example she set for you in her own life. Love and take care of one another. Live outdoors whenever you can. Go for every adventure. Don't work too hard, but learn everything that you possibly can. And perhaps most of all, for God's sake, have fun. It is in that spirit that we remember her now with the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochem Bamromi, Amsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashkina, Im Kedoshim Utohorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Ruth Bat Abraham Shachal Olama, Baal Harachamim, Yastereha Beseta Kanapav Olamim, Bitzrohor Hachaim et Nishmata, Began Eden Temenuchata, Adonai Hu Nachlata, V'tanuach B'Shalom, Amishkava, V'nomah, Amen. And friends, these are difficult times, and we have to do things differently than we usually would. I was telling the family that usually a 97-year-old funeral is not very large. This funeral would have had scores, if not hundreds of people here. I hope you're here through the miracle of this technology, and I hope you feel the love of everyone surrounding you. But because technology does have its glitches, we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to pronounce the Shema. I'm then going to step away and return to my car to leave you someplace. Not only so that you can lower the casket and place earth on the casket, but also because the director in my ear is asking Jeffrey to deliver his eulogy once again for the crowds that are hearing, listening from afar after the lowering of the casket. And so in her honor, for the first time, we say, Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba. V'yamad divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayetechol Beit Yisrael. B'agalau v'zman kariv v'yemiru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam olamei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudushav v'richu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Damiram v'yamav v'yemiru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yemiru amen. Useh shalom b'mromav. U'ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yemiru amen. We pray, may the source of peace send peace to all who mourn. And God, who is the source of comfort, may God bring you peace. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Sam, you want
Do you want to move it over here?
Where do you want to be? I was doing it. Here, Dad, you can do it right there. Go back over there.
Okay. Ready?
Get some stills here. Hi, will you talk?
Hi, Andrew Josh. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Andrew Josh? Should I do it? Okay, it'll just take me 2 minutes. And Sammy, should I start, Andrew? Andrew, should I start? Okay. Okay. A little bit ago, a friend mentioned my mom's cooking, and I got curious, so I asked Rick Warsh about it, and I said, about my mom's cooking, and he didn't answer me. So I got really curious. So a few weeks ago, I asked Bob Schwartz, and Bob Schwartz and Rick Warsh would have been at my house, growing up. I was at their house, and I said, Bob, I have a question. I want you to answer me honestly. He said, sure. I said, was my mom a bad cook? And he said, yeah, she was the worst. He said, she made a tuna noodle casserole that had peas in it. And to this day, I can't even eat tuna noodle casserole. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I be talking to you about what my mom didn't care about and wasn't good at? And I'll tell you why. Because I want you to understand what she was good at and what she cared about. She didn't care about cooking and cleaning. She wasn't a balabusta, which is a Yiddish word for, I don't know what, but it's something to do with cleaning. But whatever it was, it wasn't. She had one concern in her life, one focus, and that was fun. Having fun with my dad, having fun with her children, having fun with her grandchildren, having fun at Fox Run. And she had fun in every aspect of her life, from the very moment she met my dad to the moment when she went to bed and passed peacefully in her sleep. She was just focused from the beginning to the end. And she was very focused also on never going to a nursing home or being incapacitated. And she asked me to pray for her and pray to God at the Woodward Show that she go quietly and peacefully and never suffer and never be not able to live independently and not be in a nursing home. And I prayed. I made the prayer. That was a reasonable request. And incredibly, she got her prayer answered. She went quietly. She went exactly how she wanted. And can't say it was a coincidence. There are no coincidences. So I can tell you that. Now, I just want to end by addressing my mom directly. And the casket, I don't know if the camera can show it. The casket's a few feet away to me to my left. Mom, I know you're in the next world. You're with Dad. You're with Pom Pom. You're with Uncle Nate. You're with all your Windsor girlfriends. You're with all the family friends that we grew up with on Sussex. And you're having a great time. And I know you're planning a barbecue, a nature hike, a bird watching. You're talking about what you're going to have for dinner. And you're just having a good old time. And my final prayer for you is that you have as much fun in the next world as you had in this one. And that you continue this legacy of fun that began so many years ago. I just want to tell you, I promise you this, we will continue to have fun for the rest of our days on earth. You asked me not to be sad when you passed. I am sad today, and I'm going to be sad this week, but next week, I promise, no more sadness, only fun, only joy. And I just want to tell you that I'm eternally grateful. I had the best teacher in the world for how to live a fun, meaningful, celebratory life. I love you, Mom, and I always will. Thanks.
Got it. Okay. Bobby Ruth was a complicated lady. These, oh yeah, please turn it. Thank you. These are remarks from Matt Applesmith from Denver. Bobby Ruth was a complicated lady, but there are two distinct memories in my mind of her, and they both happened over a long car ride. The first was when we drove up to Traverse City in a crowded car in the middle of summer with no AC. Bobby was not a happy camper by any means, and she showed it. Bobby has something to say about every bump, every temperature increase, every hard break. It was a tough trip, but once we got there, every bad thing seemed to drift away. It was then filled with family, fun, and of course, Crystal Lake. The second memory is a lot more recent, when we drove to Traverse City for Raffi's wedding. She was still miserable in the car ride, even though we did have AC this time. But the minute we got there, you could tell she was glad that she had made the journey. Bobby was all smiles and sweet words to everyone. It seemed like she had got her wish for a fast baby from Raffi and Emmy, something she mentioned repeatedly that weekend. Bobby was happy when family was together, and seeing her shine that weekend will always be a bright memory for me. Sometimes the journey was hard for Bobby, but it made the destination all that much sweeter. I missed you so much and didn't realize how much you impacted me until you left us. With family, the journey can often be difficult, but that makes the destination all sweeter. Thank you for teaching me that, Bobby. Love you and miss you, Matt Applesmith.
No, we don't need that.
All right, Drew, we're all set.
No.